Welcome to another episode of Rules I Refuse to Follow, a weekly mini segment where I unpack the unspoken rules women are expected to follow in business, relationships, and daily life, and lovingly burn them to the fucking ground. This is The Untamed Divine, the podcast helping female leaders overcome anxiety and self-doubt through the divine feminine, reigniting their flow, abundance, and ease. I'm your host, Hannah O'Donovan, and this week's rule: control the room, control the outcome. This ties in very nicely with episode 52, which was released earlier this week. The idea of control. In that episode, we address why high-achieving women tend to fall into this cycle of control and how to shift out of it. But today I want to talk a little bit more of how have we gotten here? Because there's this belief that to get what we want as women in love, work, or life, we need to stay in control at all times. And honestly, I deeply believe that that is killing your relationship and it is killing your business. And I say that as someone who took the approach of building a business from a place of control and building a relationship from a place of control, both of which I burnt down and started again. There is this unspoken conditioning that women are taught to manage everything, right? Their emotions, their appearance, their tone, their timing, their ambition to manipulate outcomes without being called demanding, aggressive, or too much. So we come from this collective understanding that if we manage ourselves, manipulate ourselves into the right way, then we will be able to get what we want. Although that often isn't actually the case, because when we do one thing, we get criticized for not doing the other and vice versa. So it's kind of a lose-lose. But there is this idea that if we present ourselves in a certain way, whether that's the cool girl, the pretty girl, the athletic girl, the boss babe, whatever it is, that we are going to be able to get to where we want to go. And that is a version in itself of control, right? So control becomes this coping mechanism. It's not actually this sense of power that we think it is. What looks like strength is often actually fear in disguise, which is basically the foundational understanding of what being a human is. But this fear of rejection, fear of chaos, fear of disappointment. Ooh, baby, fear of disappointment. We talked a lot about that in my therapy session this week. I have been running from disappointment. But that when we control, it's how we, especially as high-achieving women, avoid feeling powerless. But unfortunately, that control comes at the cost of connection, of trust, and of joy. And connection, trust, and joy are foundational parts of being a woman. When we don't have those, we become disconnected from ourselves, from our divine feminine. And it is no wonder that we are not enjoying what we are doing. Because when we are controlling the room to control the outcome, and when I say controlling the room, I mean both actually controlling the room, like walking into a boardroom and trying to control the outcome, walking into your bedroom and trying to control the outcome, but also controlling the room that you live in all day, every day, and the perception of how people see you, and also to control how you perceive others, right? You don't want to be disappointed by your partner, and so you control your relationship. You control date night. You control how your partner takes care of the kids because you don't want to be disappointed when they don't meet your standards of how you think it should be done. When we focus so much on controlling how people perceive us and how we perceive other people to avoid disappointment, to avoid rejection, to avoid the chaos of feeling unpredictable, we lose that sense of connection with others because we're not allowing ourselves to be ourselves or others to be themselves. And that is a killer of feeling in true community with other people, because feminine power isn't about control. It's about co-creation. It's about us being able to learn how to lead with openness, receptivity, and intuition, which allows us to be highly influential, but without manipulation and without the burnout that comes from constantly manipulating perceptions, right? So this idea that if we're in control of the room, if we're in control of the situation, then we're controlling the outcome. Yes, maybe you're controlling the outcome, but that is not actually beneficial to what you truly want inside. It's not beneficial to you building nourishing community. It's not beneficial to you building success without burnout, without resentment. When we are able to surrender and release control, it allows us to connect with our own intuition in such a deep way that you will truly start to influence the things that you want. You will start to influence the people around you in such an effortless way that you'll think it's like some crazy kind of magic. You'll be like, wait a second, this is happening exactly how I want it to. But a former version of me thought that I needed to like tightly control the situation in order to get the outcome that honestly, most of the time you think you want, you don't actually want. Because when you are in that mode of distrust and control, it clouds, like there's smoke in front of what you actually want. When you start to surrender, you start to see the truth of what you want, which sometimes is the same as what you wanted before, sometimes is different. But when you can see the truth of what you want and then realize that moving in flow with your intuition actually gets you that with more influence than any sort of control and manipulation did before, that is like such a cool feeling, especially as a woman. Like, oh, I don't need to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way in order to get what I want, in order to manipulate the outcome. And honestly, something that I'm learning in real time right now is how to be with disappointment, because control is a way to avoid disappointment. So if we can learn how to be with disappointment, then that need for control naturally starts to dissipate. If I can disappoint others and most importantly, disappoint myself and realize that the sky does not fall, that in fact, there's some real fucking magic in being able to sit with disappointment, because then how powerful do you become? When you can walk into a room and think, bring it on, disappoint me, because I don't feel the need to control anything, because I am so comfortable in my ability to meet disappointment that I am just going to flow. And people read that off of you, whether they know it or not consciously, they read that kind of energy. You've gone into a room where someone's walked in and wanted to just control the situation, control the meeting, control the relationship, control whatever it is, the dynamics. And your immediate reaction is like, oh, this doesn't feel good. And also probably you're thinking, what are they compensating for? What are they afraid of? That they need to control this situation with such force. That is an energy that you're reading off of someone else. So imagine the flip side, someone walking in and being like, yeah, I don't need to control this situation. I don't need to control the optics here. I don't need to control what you think about me or how this is going to turn out, because I know how to sit with disappointment. I know it doesn't take me out, and that's okay, because the messiness is the magic. And when you let others lead from a place of feeling really in tune with your own power, your own intuition, it will surprise you. And so that's why I think it's total fucking bullshit that if you control the room, you control the outcome. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. You will meet the outcome that you truly want when you allow yourself to A, learn that disappointment is not going to bury you, and B, that true feminine power is not about control. It's about co-creation and learning to lead with openness, with receptivity, and allowing your intuition to influence the situation, to bring you to the place that you truly desire. So that is another rule that I am giving the big old fuck you to. Join me next week for another one.